South Africans must learn to save money first of all. We don't save money. We're good at spending, buying Louis Vuittons and Foshamps and all those things, Mercedes-Benz and all the expensive cars. We don't save money. I think our young people must be taught how to save money.
I mean, welcome to the Business Unusual podcast. Today, I'm sitting across the way from a man who's obviously had seismic shifts in both politics, South Africa's political journey in South Africa, a businessman, a veteran, a poet. Wow, just a really great guy. So I'm really honored to have Dr. Mathews Phosa here on the podcast. I mean, I don't know if you can see in the background, but they put it up there. But you're on the cover of Mpumalanga. You've just recently got your own book out, and you've spoken at many of our events. The news agencies have been plugging every time you speak. You know, there's my WhatsApp's going crazy. So, you know, I suppose we're very grateful to have you here, Mathews. It's really nice to have you here.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be given this platform of Topco. We came a long way with you and your dad with Topco, and I still believe in Topco's role in society. So keep it up.
Pick it up. Yeah, you need to pick it up. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much to go through. I mean, obviously there's your book and there's the relationship we've had. But I mean, if you had to go back to your early days, you know, what do you think was shaped your upbringing into politics?
Well, I'm going to tell you a very interesting story, which is not normally told. You know, my grandfather was in the Second World War based in Italy, fighting fascism. My mother was one of those young ladies who was trained to be a volunteer nurse in the Second World War. Just as they were about to be sent to Europe, the war ended. Now, if you have these two inspirations in your life, which stood for humanity, and you begin to grow up saying to yourself, what is my contribution to humanity? First of all, it was a very young wish. I always wished to defend people who were disadvantaged. So I thought the only way to do it is to be a lawyer. But as I began to be, even before a lawyer in full details, I saw so many injustices around me. I saw doors where blacks were not allowed to go in, doors of schools, of shops, of toilets. It said to me, but what's wrong with us? Didn't God create us all in his own image? I was very religiously inspired that no, if anybody tampers with the wish of God that we had created this image, I have to take a stand against them. And that's what inspired me.
Yeah, and it was amazing. I mean, I read that part of your book about your dad. I think he basically built schools and more or less ran them, and they sent him around, and your mum was a nurse. And I don't know, I mean, at Topco, we interview a lot of people, and it just feels to me this pull of educators and social workers like nurses. For some reason, they bring around values within a household, and normally those values, for some reason, when someone tells me their mother and father are educators and nurses, I have already a strong and warm feeling about them. And I wonder why. What is it about them that sort of drove the values that you have?
Well, the service to community, service to others. I mean, my dad has been a teacher. You know, Ralf, you won't believe it. You leave home, he's teaching at school A. When you are already in the boarding school, you tell your dad is transferred to school B. So your home has changed. You have to keep chasing your dad from one village to the other in Mpumalanga. So it's a teacher who had first basic school skills from Tagalog in Eastern Cape. He did carpentry, building, plumbing. So he loved those. Then he went to Chabera, the Lutheran missionary school, to do teaching. So for him, he was like a missionary. And he came from far Limpopo villages to the far Mpumalanga villages. Away from, he couldn't even speak Siswati, but he was amongst those people because he loved to share knowledge.
Yeah. And I mean, how do we how do we bring some of those values into South Africa in this fast-paced? And we were at an event, was it last week or the week before, for Nexus Lexus around their AI capabilities, and you spoke. And so there's a lot of these skills that are growing, but what's to be said for the values of society, and how do we as parents, as business people, as people in society, how do we help encourage these things?
I think we should front the values of service, servant leadership, service to the community. That when you become a leader, it's not to serve your ego, to serve the people. When you become a chairman of a company or a director of a company, you serve the interests of the shareholders. There's always people around you whose interests you have to serve. But not only the shareholders, but society. The King's report tells us that there must be corporate responsibility to communities. So it goes beyond corporate, it goes beyond politics, but more in politics, where taxpayers' money are entrusted with us. We have a responsibility not to steal, but to serve, the different S.
Sure. and I mean, what do you think shaped your leadership style?
So my leadership style was shaped by the understanding of ethics, integrity, good governance. I mean, I was a patron of corporate governance in South Africa because I believed in that. And I give lectures at Stadio and other universities on corporate governance because it's about that. Without good corporate governance in the public sector and private sector, we are in a mess. There's no company that can run without observing corporate governance. There's no government itself which can run cleanly without observing corporate governance, integrity, transparency, honesty, all those things. And understand that you're not there for yourself, you are there to serve the people.
I think they said values are not what people see, it's what you do when people aren't looking. Those are what you call the right values. And so I sometimes wonder, there was yourself in a news dispensation, the Premier of Mpumalanga, and there was pressure all over the place to look the other way or to do things differently. And I think, what kept your eye on the prize? What was it that sort of was the deeper feeling you had, or the reason to fight against, I suppose, all the accusations and the challenges that you had at the time?
Well, that grandfather of mine, I'm very indebted to him. He imbued in me the Christian values at a young age. That you pray before you sleep, you pray when you wake up, you pray before you eat, and you honest to God and you serve God. For me, serving the people of God was what drove me in a public space. I always understood that thou shalt not steal. It's a supreme rule in public life. And then when I was in the Premier, some of the things which would have made me unpopular, because those who stole, I fired them. I fired three MECs, and then it didn't make me very popular. But I didn't understand leadership to be a popularity state. I thought leadership is about serving the interests of the people. If anyone betrays that interest, they have to pay a price. And I was very quick at it. And the way I did it, Ralf, I didn't fire anyone. I showed them their wrongdoings and asked them to say, what is it that they need me to do? So I asked them to resign on their own. Save me the burden of having to fire them. But they realized that they did something wrong. So I always was driven by values in the corporate space and public space.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose in your book, when you're talking around, there was that moment where you knew Mandela was moving on and Mbeki was coming into power, and there wasn't the same light being shone on you from Mbeki as it was from Mandela. And that reflection, I suppose, like, oh, sugar, what I've done, I'm not going to probably be doing the same thing again. Did you think of changing an approach, or would you have changed your approach, do you think?
I don't think I'd have changed any approach. Mandela was like a father to me, and I mean it. He always called me boy, and I accepted it from the day I walked into his office from exile. And we worked like father and son. It was brilliant, it was good. But let me tell you, I accepted that Mbeki is not Mandela. Because I had known Mbeki as a brother. We worked together very, very well. We did the negotiations together. We were very close, almost unbelievably close. I would drive him from the quiet meetings of Codesa to his home several times in the car. So we're very, very close. It sounds funny, but it is true. And when power goes into people's head, it's funny how they behave. It affects them in a particular way. I never expected that when I was involved in the trenches of the struggle. But that's what happened. And he had an attitude, for one reason or the other, towards me, which was not very pleasing to me or Mandela. And what Mandela said to me, he says, I know Mbeki does not want you, but I'm the president. You stay there. You don't make one move out of your office. So I knew I had the boss protection, so I continued with my work as premier. But I picked it up very quickly, as I said in my book, that he has got another candidate for premier who we never knew in the province. And I didn't have a problem. What I did, immediately I knew that they were going to announce him. I did the right thing. I congratulated him. I wished him well, and I promised to do a proper handover in the morning. But in the afternoon, Betty calls me to tell me who is going to replace me. I said, but I know, I already congratulated me. He was shocked. He said, how did you know? I said, I know. I'm Mr. President, did I congratulate the wrong person? He says, no. I said, okay, thank you.
Funny, eh? I mean, those negotiations that you speak of when South Africa went to democracy, I mean, I think it's been globally recognized as a peaceful transition. It's really unheard of. I mean, are there principles? Because I think throughout life you're negotiating with your colleagues, you're negotiating with your loved ones, you're negotiating, everything's a trade-off, everything's a negotiation. Are there, do you think, tips or a process to a good negotiation?
Yes, there are, Ralf. Unless there is trust between the parties, there's no agreement that can be accepted between the parties. So the first thing in negotiations is to build trust. It doesn't matter whether it's political negotiations or business negotiations. You need to trust the person across the table. And that trust can be created over time. And then once there's trust, then there will be deals to be done. There must be no suspicion that my yes means my no. My yes must mean my yes, my no must mean my no. That's trust. And at the same time, you need to avoid being personal about the person across the table. You need to respect them, and they will in turn respect you. Respect attracts respect. So that you build trust, you build mutual respect, and then you start getting involved in the issues which must be discussed. And issues must be discussed very candidly. You mustn't cover up anything, because it will come to bite both of you later. The most uncomfortable issues in negotiation must be discussed.
And do you have a strategy for doing that? I mean, so like the trust perspective, is that before you walking in, doing your research, knowing who you're dealing with, or is that trust you think can be built in a one-off, quickly and easily in negotiations?
Well, you have to do homework on the person you're going to negotiate with. I'm not saying opponent or enemy, because it shouldn't be like that.
You should be wanting to do. It should be a good thing, right?
Yeah. So you have to do homework and understand them. They will do the same thing you can accept, and of course, work out what will be your walk away options. Because if you walk into a negotiation without a walk away option, you're committing suicide. You need to know where will you push back, where will you not push back, what will you give in. It's a quid pro quo to the other party. Those things must be worked out subtly away from the table. When you go to the table, you almost like understand one another and you can anticipate one another. When we were at Codesa, which was the first talks, we were anxious about these two parties led by Mandela and de Klerk not having been together before. It was the first day they were together, except us, the secretariat, who were negotiating behind closed doors. You had Joe Modise on the one side, and Mathews Phosa, Chris Honey, Flock, I mean, these were like looking at each other through the sight of guns all the time. So we said to ourselves, but do we take these people to a table? Doesn't matter whether it's square or oblong, and say, sit, talk, here's the agenda. We said, it's not going to work. These guys are human. Get them around the table of wine. They must not sit down. They must stand up, nibble cheese, cook sisters, and walk around and know each other, shake hands. We gave them an hour to mill around with one another. At the end of the hour, they're all laughing. And I said, I can't believe it. We're watching from the side. I can't believe these sworn enemies find common jokes amongst themselves before they come to the table. By the time they came to the table, it felt different. There was no tension. It felt like the agenda would be entertained, and it was entertained. We didn't want to necessarily reach agreement, but we needed to introduce the issues which were facing the nation in the future.
Wow, it's quite a good thing, because we often think of celebrating discussions afterwards and getting down to serious business beforehand, but actually it's the other way around, celebrating each other.
We're building trust.
Building trust.
Yes.
And avoiding getting personal. I mean, there was a lot of hurt, and there was a lot of, I suppose, anger. How on earth did you avoid getting personal?
Well, we had good teachers. I always tell people, Mandela was a university of life to me, and I think to many others. Walking here is preaching to us that there's a need to make peace with the clerk. And we just said to him, but you want to make peace with your enemy. He says, no, he's not my enemy. He's a fellow citizen with whom I have to make peace. In fact, I don't need my friend to make peace with, because I already have it. I need the clerk who's not my friend to make peace with. And me and the clerk will cross the bridge together into the future. I need the clerk to bring the white vote into settlement. I'll bring the black vote in the settlement. That type of thing. And we talked about, how do you feel, Mr. President, about where you had treated 27 years in jail and all those things. He said, guys, it's the past. We must learn to rise above our pains. We must rise above our anger, petty anger. We must never be personal. It's about the national interest which is on the table. So let's face the national interest and stop thinking about our little petty feelings. They will not take us anywhere. Some of the things were very difficult. Like the guy says, impose peace on violence. I mean, there's violence in the country. The instinct of a soldier like me was, listen, I want to retaliate. I said, young man, you're not going to retaliate yet. You must think with your head, not your heart. Not your heart. You must impose peace on violence. That's your duty. Not easy for a young man with boiling blood like I was that time, and all of us. But they insisted on those two type of approaches. And slowly but sure, they said to us, if you're going to retaliate with violence, you are doing what the enemy wants you to do.
I suppose that a lot of negotiations, people feel unheard. And I suppose, in a way, there's a new way of negotiating or being heard as well. People almost feel disrespected if their emotions aren't discussed or brought up. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we had to brush our emotions under the carpet and face national issues. There's no way we could have entertained pettiness around the table. And there were moments in working groups where you felt like, these guys are being personal. They're exploding into each other's faces. I mean, I remember moments when Paulo Jordan, he hated for Flock. And Chris Hani hated him. We just saw him as a murderer. And they were showing it around the table. And you will cringe with Madonna sitting there. Oh, these guys, they could cool down a bit. So we had human moments. I call them human moments. And we understood that.
For sure. And I mean, the respect thing, because obviously that's third on your list. How do you build respect where you've got maybe someone that you feel has done, let's say there were some leaders you worked with who you felt didn't respect you entirely, but you reciprocated with respect back to them?
But I always felt like I lost nothing by extending my respect to the next person. Even when they were nasty with me, I will remind them that there was no need for nastiness. Could we be on our good manners? And they feel so small and they begin to behave differently, you know.
And so I know that you requested to have the South African flag behind you today. What was the reason for that?
I'm a proud South African.
Yeah.
I sacrificed my youth fighting for this country, not for myself, but for the people. You know, I remember when this flag was flown, 1994, during the inauguration. It was such an emotional moment for the nation, I think for the continent and the world, that this could not be dreamed of. And here we are. A new South Africa has been born under this flag, you know, with the fighter jets flying over the Union buildings, with the colors of the flag. For me, I'll wrap myself with the flag to the end.
It's amazing, eh? It's funny because on the weekend, I was busy doing some stuff and I wasn't able to watch the rugby. But at the beginning, when the national anthem went on, I thought how amazing it is whenever I hear the national anthem. And I know even at our events, we try and always play the national anthem before any of our events. I mean, how important is that, do you think, that we celebrate the success that we've had?
Well, I think we should have symbols of unity. The national flag is a symbol of unity. It's the very first, and the national anthem, it's another symbol of unity. We sing about ourselves, you know, our hopes, our dreams, our wishes. You know, they hang around this flag, and we should always hoist our flags very high and sing our national anthems loud.
Yeah, I remember going to the States about 15 years ago, and we were in a port. And I think it was dinner time. It's just a random day. They all stand up in the middle of the restaurant and start singing the national anthem of America. It was something I'd never seen before or experienced. And I'd agree with you. I think celebrating our successes, celebrating this national anthem, having the flag up is vital.
I mean, you remember moments like when Mandela, the Springboks were playing, when Mandela walked into the pitch. I can never forget that. You know, it brings tears of joy in me. I mean, you felt like, the black, the green, the white, and other flags. This flag is your flag. This is your flag.
I think we see it, don't we? I mean, I see it a lot with the rugby. I see the South African ness come out and the unity coming out with the rugby. But it needs to be more than that, right? I mean, that's my feeling. It needs to be more than just rugby. It needs to be education. It needs to be everything.
Our education needs a lot to add on. Our values, our history. But the young people who were born after 94 really don't know what happened, even during 94, you know, which is part of the reason why I wrote my book. To carry those who were not born in 94 and to carry those who were born around 94 and beyond. To say this is part of history. Let's learn and understand it, you know. We have to get the history books reaching the schools, the universities, and educate our children. You know, it can't all be mathematics and digital marketing. We need to know ourselves. Who are we? Our cultures, our language, our religions, diversities.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the question that I was going to ask is, you know, what does witness to power mean to you?
Well, you know, you have a rare opportunity in your life to serve and advise 5 presidents in your country.
Crazy.
Over 30 years. And you are an insider. You can see why Mandela is struggling to say to himself, who must be my deputy president? And you advise him. I think it should be this way and not that way. And he takes your advice. And you live with him. He teaches all these values which I told you are part of the University of Life lessons. And the next thing you are with him begging, he's your deputy president, he's your president. And you go through all the ups and downs with him. And at the end of the day, you know, you differ to agree at the end, you know. You don't differ to be enemies. You differ to agree at the end and move on. And then you have this Zuma, who's another character on his own. I'm the treasurer general in that mixed. I must raise money, and there are all sort of, hanging issues around him, the Nkandla issues and everything else. It's very difficult, but you sail through. You try and steer the ship of the country. The country became more important than individuals in those cases. I mean, just feel like it is the country, it's not this individual. Let us not sink down with him, and we move on. Then we have a stage where, you have Khalima Mutlanti, a true statesman who comes in, but very short as president, but you appreciate the stint he had for 6 months. And then you have Zuma coming in as president, and of course you've got Ramaphosa coming in, and Pala flashing in his face. You have to say, how do I deal with this thing? It's never peace in the water. The crocodiles are always moving.
Always crocodiles are moving.
They're always moving.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some things you wrote in the book, which was after being the premier of Mpumalanga, there were some friends that sort of weren't so friendly anymore. And I suppose you got a few surprises with President Zuma as well that you hadn't really expected. And how are we meant to, and I think you said it jaded you a little bit in terms of trust for your friends and colleagues. How do leaders deal with that? Because, we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, right?
Well, when the Constitutional Court pronounced on Zuma, I was about to give a speech to the Chamber of Commerce in Palabora. And I decided that, you know what, I'm walking in here, top businessmen and women. I'm going to give a speech on a public platform. The Constitutional Court has pronounced on the president. I felt, listen, the emperor is naked. I need to say something. And I decided I would change my speech and I was call on him to step down. And I did it as the first NC leader. He didn't earn me kudos, didn't make me popular in certain circles. I didn't care. I thought I made a correct statement that he must go. Of course, he shut down on me for more than 3 years. He didn't respond to my emails or calls or anything. I kept quiet, kept my cool, focused on my businesses. The weekend before he was going to be fired by National Assembly, he called me, and I took the call. My wife said to take the call. I spoke to him like we have been speaking for the last 3 years. He was just laughing his usual self. How are you, Baba? He was just laughing. I didn't talk to him with anger. I was listening to him, and I gave him advice. Then we agreed to meet the following day. And then, of course, I did not know how we were going to meet. Then I was about to sleep on Monday, and I get a call from his bodyguard saying, listen, he wants to talk to you. Okay, I'll talk to him. The next thing he calls, he said, he wants to see you at Mahlambandlovu, the home of the president. At 9 at night, I'm in my pajamas. I throw away the pajamas, I jump into my car, go to his house. And what did I do? I said to Mr. President, after listening to him, this is time to go. I suggest you go, protect your pension, protect your family, and just go. After a long discussion, he agreed. And I was happy that he agreed. And there was supposed to be a press conference the following day at 10, and we had agreed that no, they must hold a bit. But he had a lot of things to say about what made him unhappy with the current president. I said to him, that can't be the reason why you must not go. Tell the country what made you unhappy, but go. So we agreed. So 2 o'clock the following morning, he told the country about what made him unhappy. I don't think anybody paid attention to those things. But then he didn't resign at the time when I thought he would. Then when I was sleeping, because I slept the following morning at 3 a.m., I hear that he resigned. I said, oh, hallelujah, he has resigned. Of course, later he invited me after 2 weeks. We had breakfast and we talked about it. He said it was the right advice, and we've moved on. Until today, he's not my enemy. I'm not his enemy.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say was the hardest thing that you revealed in the book for you? The most difficult truth?
Well, it's about after my accident. I mean, where my femur had broken down 52 times. I never thought I would walk again in my life. I mean, I was on a wheelchair for about two months. Never thought I would stand up. And instead of my comrades, some of them, of course, were very supportive. There are others who, instead of them saying, how's his health? They said, why didn't you ask him to resign? And I got very stubborn. I said, I'm not resigning. My brain is not broken, it's my leg. I can think. Therefore, I'm going to run the government using my brain. I never use the government using my legs. If I'm walking on a wheelchair to run the government, I'm going to do that. If I'm walking on crutches, I'll do that. And Ralf, that's what I did.
Yeah. Geez, when I read that, I mean, there was a couple of others. Was it Colin Shabani also died in a similar sort of way? I worried that maybe there was naughty things happening there with that accident. That's when I read that part of the book. So that's sort of...
Well, Winnie Mandela thought that there was an assassination attempt.
Yes.
I had to talk her out of it. I said, please, let's leave it. I'm alive, Mama. He was convinced, someone was trying to knock you out. I said, please, Mama, let's leave it. I played it down until today.
It certainly seemed like that when I read it in the book. It was almost, there's so many incidents that's happened in the country since then in a similar type of scenario. So, yeah. Were you ever scared?
Was I ever scared of what?
No, I don't know.
No, you can't scare a soldier. The fear is killed by the exploding hand grenade. I'm never scared of anything until today.
I've seen you at speeches where, and like you said, in the one that you did about the emperor's clothes, you've never felt a fear to have a voice. No,
my voice will always be heard in this country, fearlessly, telling the truth. The truth should never be suppressed in the society. The truth must be celebrated and it must be told. We must always encourage our children to value the truth and not to worship lies and become crooks, So on a political platform, I speak my mind. I've never been afraid. I will die not being afraid. So that's where I am.
What does it take to tell the truth? Because one of the things I do know about you is you have a lot of researchers and people that work with you to make sure that when you produce some content, that there's a lot of effort and a lot of planning that goes into that.
Every speech is planned carefully. We look at the topic, we say amongst us, who are the best to brainstorm the speech and put forward the ideas. I've always worked in a collective. If its speech sounds in values, leadership values, we sit around it. But you'll find we've written many speeches like that. We'll draw from our own experiences. But if it's more financial, I'm not a financial man, I'm a lawyer. We get a financial expert around us to guide us on how we should walk the path of articulating the issues. But I'm always with people who advise me all the time.
I mean, you said around some of the icons. I mean, I would say Nelson Mandela is one of the top 5 icons in the world of all time. Many people would say that they'd love to have dinner with him if it was one of the top people they could ever have dinner with. I mean, what are the lessons that you learned from Mandela that you think we can all learn? Like, what are the lessons from that time with this special man?
Ralf, I'm laughing as we talk about having dinner. He always said to me, he said it twice, Matthew, you must have good eating habits all the time. So what do you mean, Mr. President, good eating habits? He says, in the morning, you're going to eat big breakfast alone. No one must disturb you when you eat your breakfast. During the day, have a big lunch with your friends and families. In the evening, don't eat any dinner. If someone gives you a dinner, throw it to your enemies. But he was trying to say, just don't eat like a pig.
Yeah.
Just how you eat. Because it's about your body, how you nurse your body. He never took alcohol. I don't take alcohol. He never smoked. I don't smoke. Mandela was frontal in telling the truth. And I think we have learned a lot from him about that. Not only him, but also if you take Walter Sisulu, the quiet giant around Mandela. And I may say, Mandela listened to him and Oliver Tambo all the time in terms of who he had to advise, to ask for advice. He listened to them, and they guided him as well. So he was also not an island. So the principle of not being an island, I learned from him. Consult those confidants around you and share wisdom. They will see your blind sides.
And I mean, in the political arena right now, I think, someone asked you before, I don't know, something about the ANC and some challenges. And I think he said, not everybody's bad. And so I think it's like in life and everything. Who are the good leaders within the country that you see that we should be paying attention to?
Well, Ralf, it's difficult to individualize, but like you say, we should not generalize. Across the spectrum, there are good people in the ANC, there are good people in the DA, and in all other political parties. But there are also bad, rotten potatoes in all those parties. And every day it's coming out, you know. And this week it came out in the most dramatic way from the Commissioner Mpumalanga, pointing a finger at the highest echelons of power, where we never expected that the finger could be pointed, and saying the things which he said. Okay, subject to investigation, but it has been said, and it caused alarm in the country. You know, I think we should be very careful and not generalize, but know that there are good people amongst us. My prayer is that the good people must emerge. They must never allow themselves to be submerged. They must always emerge.
I mean, I think politics in general, globally, gets a rap. It gets a hard time. I mean, you know, if I look at the UK at the moment, I see some challenges with the leadership there, and it's happening all the time. I mean, we know what's happening across the waters in America with Trump, and you know, and so is it as humans that we have shortcomings, or are there some leadership lessons and political lessons for the next generation?
There's no one who rules forever. I don't know if that's no empire lives forever. So no political party rules forever. In South Africa, you can see how the ANC collapsed from 57% to 40%, with the prospect of collapsing further to almost 30%, or even less. No one rules forever. No individual lives or rules forever. That's a lesson which we should all humble ourselves and accept. You know.
And we don't live forever.
None of us lives forever. There's a time when God shuts our eyes, stop breathing, and we go. And I always say, if death must come, death will come.
And so how should we live our lives if we know that political parties come and go and humans come and go? How should we vote in or identify good leaders for our country, for our businesses?
I think we should look at what are our values. What services do we want delivered to us? And I'll talk about our country, which is more relevant. We want good governance to prevail in our government. We want government to understand that it must stay connected with the people, the ordinary people. And how does it get connected to ordinary people? People want a growing economy, a country that brings in investments from all over the world, which means a country in which there's confidence by money internationally. 2 or 3, people want jobs. You know, people can't eat slogans of politicians or manifestos. They want jobs. You know, there's nothing as humiliating as being unemployed. You know, and we must understand that. In a particular situation, we have challenges. There's corruption. And this is corroding our society, it's corroding our souls. People are stealing, and they think stealing is in vogue, you know. It's a way of life. It's not right. You know, we want people who don't commit crime. Our people live in fear at the moment. We need to assure the people that the law enforcement will be the law enforcement and no one will commit a crime and not be punished. And that is the assurance we should give to people. If a political party does not give those guarantees, must not vote for it. I don't care what his name is. I don't care what his name is.
And so, I mean, you helped create the Bill of Rights or the Constitution. And I read that you said it must be evolving and changing. But is there a fundamental challenge with democracy at the moment?
Well, the Bill of Rights, for me, remains the Bill of Rights, and it's a very good Bill of Rights. It has learned a lot from the UN Charter, a lot. It has learned a lot from other world experiences who have conventions, like in Germany and in England, who don't have written constitutions as such, all of them. but who have others who have democracies which are written constitutions. But the fact of the matter is, we must understand that a constitution is written for generations. The young generation in South Africa are entitled to say to us, the old people, no, we want to break new frontiers and bring in amendments. The Constitution allows for amendments, and they must debate it within the framework of the law in Parliament and have the two-thirds majority for those amendments. Because then if you go to Parliament again, because we're a democracy, you're going to benefit from the debate which are for and against. So it must not be an arbitrary, emotional thing with a gun-carrying soldier saying, I'm changing the constitution. That we should never allow. We should never allow a military dictatorship in this country. We should continue to allow civilian leadership.
And, I mean, do you... there is the area where you helped raise funds for the ANC.
Yes.
And I mean, in some ways, if I think of a business's life, it has to raise funds as well. You're probably one of the most successful, liked Treasury Generals the ANC's ever had, probably any political party's had in South Africa. I mean, my dad went with you to Zambia, and you were like well received by the ministers and stuff there. I mean, what do you think it takes to create a good image of getting investment into the country to grow this economy?
I would like to deal with the country, and I want to deal with a political party. So we don't look like I'm avoiding anything. We are a country with a rule of law. That, first of all, is the most attractive thing to the outside world. There must be a rule of law. There must be a stable democracy. There must be regular elections from national to the lowest structures of government. To create certainty, there must be no crime. Why would you come and invest in a country full of crime, full of corruption, syndicates and mafias? No one wants to come to a country like that one. We must assure the world that we don't tolerate crime. We don't tolerate corruption. We push clean government. But that promotes the image of the country. The smell, the perfume is good for money to come in. And we need to create that perfume. You started where I was the treasurer of the NC. I did not think I would be a good treasurer, but I think I did my best, if I might put it that way. And the trick was simple. And I read a lot about fundraising. I read a book by McAuliffe, What a Party. He raised funds for many leaders in America. And I said, what is it that inspire people to give me money in a political party? It turned out that it's values you stand for. It's aspirations we are promoting. It's those type of things. People want to fund a democracy. They want to fund good. If you say, I stand for a non-racial South Africa, and you stick by that and you live that, it attracts money. If you say, I stand by the rule of law and democracy, democracy is a commodity I promote in my country. As a party, you preach like that, your party will have money. I got funding from heads of states, businesses across the world. And that's why I raised the highest amount of money for the ANC. And I'm very happy and proud of my record about that. It didn't come easy. It made me eat breakfast in UAE and supper in London. It was a lot of work.
I sometimes like these correlations between, what do we learn from different industries and almost different scenarios. So obviously your scenario was, getting funding for the ANC. I know that you help a lot of young miners and you're invested in that. I mean, what would your advice be to young Black entrepreneurs who are looking to create funding in their businesses in a scenario where there isn't a big funding pool?
I believe that from the beginning, and I preached it, that the government must create risk capital. If you don't create risk capital, money won't come from the sky. There must be something the state gives to encourage the entrepreneurs not only to have skills, because if they don't have skills, they will not be able to embrace opportunities productively. But if they don't have money, what will they do? There must be risk capital from the state. The private sector will not give risk capital, forget about it. But the money in the bank belongs to you and me, and they're not going to give it away easily. Even the funds, they've got limitations as to how they could fund, with risk becomes an issue for them. But we should never give up. For example, I promote the creation of new miners and farmers country. But for me, it's very important that we're able to farm, all of us, and we've got lovely land and produce food, like vegetables and fruits. It's very important for me. I farm a lot myself, And then, of course, it's very important that we understand that we must mine our resources. But who owns the mines? At the moment, most of our mines are owned from outside the country. We should create a new pools of miners in South Africa. I'm encouraging DMRE to give them licenses, but we can always find, if the license is chrome, for example, there's always investors for chrome. If it's gold, there's always investors for gold. So you match opportunity with money. If they want to trade, which is what I'm doing, I'm talking about what I'm doing, I encourage them to trade, whether it's lithium or what. They say, we got lithium. I found a buyers for them. The guy come and say, I want to buy lithium, find it for me. I get youngsters to find the quantities for him. And then there's trade, there's activities. It's not large scale like Anglo, but the guys are not hungry. They're not humiliated by unemployment. They're doing something. If it's farming, we must make our young people to love the land. We have not done so. And Africans have understood the value of land. That's why there's massive production of food in their hands. We should get everyone involved in tilling the land and producing vegetables. Every 3 months you harvest, and you can feed yourself and feed your immediate surroundings. They must understand that. We don't farm only for money. We farm also to feed ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is there, in your mind, because you've worked in both spectrums, is there something that the business world doesn't understand about politics that they should?
I think business understands, and they now and then pop off by the greed, corruption, and we say in business, if this greed and corruption does not stop, we're going to go autopilot. And business easily switches to autopilot and continues what it says to do, because they're forced to. But business understand that if you enforce law and order, there will be peace, there will be stability. We understand that. There's no one who's naive in this country. And we all wish our country for the best.
Yeah. And is there something that business can do to improve the growth prospects in the country? What can we lead? How can we lead?
I think what we should do when we make money, we must invest more and more in our own country. South Africans must learn to save money, first of all. We don't save money. We're good at spending, buying Louis Vuittons and Floshams and all those things, Mercedes-Benz and all the expensive cars. We don't save money. I think our young people must be taught how to save money. 2, how to invest money. We must invest in our country, because then money circulates amongst us, not out of us. The money that comes in must add to what we are investing. If we have no confidence in investing in our own country, why do we expect someone in the UK and China to invest in our country? Why? We must show confidence in our own country and invest in our own country.
Sure. I mean, I read somewhere that South Africans actually do invest quite a lot in South Africa. But I can't help but think I think it's the Reserve Bank now looking at reducing the growth rate of interest rates. It's going to help us if we can lower our interest rates, because then we can have this risk capital essentially being lowered, right? If we can reduce interest rates, then capital will flow to people at a lesser rate. It's less risky, essentially.
I think we should reduce interest rate. I hate tax. We have to pay tax. We must pay unto Caesar what we owe Caesar. But I hate tax. We should not make tax impossible, especially individual tax.
How do you see that?
Well, if you take individual tax in South Africa, it's very high.
Yeah.
It's very high. I mean, I think we should look at it differently. Of course, Minister of Finance won't agree with me. He wants to collect as much as possible.
I mean, moving on to this new government of national unity, what do you see as the future? I mean, are you seeing, one of the things you said earlier is that possibly the ANC voters are going down. I mean, how do you see that? How do you see the government of national unity working? Because in some spaces, I see the relationship between the two parties as quite good. So I've been at events where ministers have spoken, more from the DA side actually. That was my measure of it going well. And they seem to be supporting their ANC colleagues. So that I was impressed with. But I mean, how are you seeing it?
Well, I think we have a fait accompli at the moment. We have a government of national unity. And I think it has been well received by many, and it's working. Now and then you've got tantrums being thrown around on the issue. We've seen them in the issue of education, then budget. We've had several tantrums and hiccups. But one wishes that the leaders on both sides will stop being personal. Back to my point. Stop being personal and attacking one another at that level, personal level. We should stop what we call in law playing ad hominem, playing the personalities. We must play the issues and differ to agree, like I said earlier on. But differ to agree.
Is that just the nature of politics at the moment that's been bandied about by the Trumps of this world, or is it a lack of maturity from the leaders?
I don't think it's lack of maturity. Leaders differ from one generation to the other, from individual to the other. And if you talk about Trump, we've never had the word deal being used in politics like today. Everyone's talk about deals. It's like when you talk about business deals. Now, it's interstate that we talk about deals. He's a transactional president. He wants to take an advantage of you. And in the meantime, he's looking for your rare earth, your minerals, and then it's okay, I'll stop screaming at you, give me those things. Look at the DRC deal. I mean, really. It's about the minerals. It's not about peace in the DRC. America is scoring trillions of dollars from that country. So it's about economics. So individuals play different emphasis. If you took Mandela was not a businessman. He was good at what he was good at, human rights and everything. If you take Beg was a good economist, very smart economist. Give it to him. If you take Trump, he's a businessman, a very successful one. And for his orientation, that's why Trump and Musk don't mix. It's a conflict of capital internally. Yeah. So leaders differ from one generation to the other.
And I mean, our current president, what would you say his strengths are?
Well, he's a very calm person. He doesn't rush into taking decisions, but at the same time, he's still as indecisiveness on his part. And everybody speaks about it very openly. But I was in the same classroom with him. He's always been like that. He's not changed. He's been a very careful person who will take time, establish commissions of inquiry and all those things. But it doesn't always work in our favor because leadership requires decisiveness. It requires that sometimes you must cut the heads and cut the hands are still. You've got to be very quick. You can't take long. People have no patience for crime or corruption. So our president falls foul of being swift and decisive.
I think especially more than ever in the days that we're living in the TikTok world, people want to see things, very quickly emerging.
Yeah, they want to see problems resolved. But you can't fault this moral base at the moment. I mean, he's a very calm person, and you need a steady hand at the top there. He's a steady hand.
What do you think is the most, I suppose, unusual leadership challenge we face today? Is it these trade wars? Is it the devaluing and valuing of the rand? What would you say is the most unusual leadership challenge we face at the moment?
Well, the trade wars are hurting us. We just got a guy saying to us, we'll impose 30% on our goods. It's bad. It's bad not only for the traders who produce those goods, but also for the workers back home. Our exporters have to now find new markets rather than be hit with that 30%. And there are new markets in the world where they can start trading with those new world, but it's a necessary disruption from a man sitting in America. It's disrupting the whole world. But internally ourselves, we've got our own objective problems. We must fight crime. We must fight corruption. We must strengthen our governments, especially local government. It's a disaster at local government. I mean, the money that is being lost there, calculated by the Auditor General, is shocking. It's in billions. We can't afford losing money at local government level. The nonsense has to stop. Sorry.
In these situations of where you've gone through difficult times like this with these trade wars, what anchors you as a leader? So what are the things that anchors you to be a good leader?
Well, your principles. I think we've talked about the values, the principles. If you ask me what would you do where you are now, if you were to move in there, I'll reduce that cabinet to a quarter. And create more stronger support structures at the DG and DDG levels, and create a cost-effective government. And I'll reduce the provinces. Sorry, they're 9, they're very consuming. And reduce the municipalities and integrate them at the lower level. Make government much cheaper, right? That's number one. Number two, I will try and fight crime and corruption and make sure that we have an image of a country that is very much in line with the rule of law, anti-crime, anti-corruption.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you took over in Mpumalanga, it was the old Transvaal, and at the time there was 4 provinces in the country, and now there was 9, and I think you had a view that maybe we need to go back to 4. Is that still a view that you share, or do you think?
Definitely. It's interesting if we were to show on this platform. One guy said in 1990, guys, we only need 4 provinces. We don't need 9. You know who it was? Jacob Zuma. Give him credit. Give him credit. He says, God,
did he say that?
Why do you do so many provinces?
Who would you say? I mean, as we're wrapping this up, and I'm grateful for your time, but as we're wrapping this, who would you say is one of the most underrated leaders in South Africa at the moment? For me, it's someone like Nteto Nyati, but he's not a political leader.
Well, it's difficult to say. I can't individualize. I'm sure you'll pardon me. It's very difficult to say, to mention people's names. But I'm sure there are a number of guys who are underrated. There's both men and women in the country.
Both men and women underrated. And we both love books. What's the one book you think that people should be reading at the moment? Apart from Witness to Power.
I recommend a book called The Dignity of Differences. It's written by Rabbi Sachs in London. Sachs as in S-A-C-H. This book, The Dignity of Differences, was written after the World Trade Center bombing. And it was written inspired by the various religious groups, people, various cultures, various languages meeting at the World Trade Center and saying to themselves, you Christian, you Muslim, you Yiddish, you're this, you're black, you're white, but there's dignity in our differences. There is dignity in our differences. We must embrace and celebrate our differences of language, of culture, of religion. Those things must not divide us. Dignity of differences.
Wow. It's so important that we start looking at, I don't know, what brings us together, but also have the humility to be intrigued, I suppose, by other people's differences, because variety is the spice of life.
Exactly.
And how can we bring that together? It was amazing to do this podcast with you, Mathews, as always.
Thank you. And good luck.
Hopefully we see you at our next event really soon, because I enjoy the personal even more than the online. But
where is the next event? I'd like to attend.
I think it's the Top Empowerment, Nedbank Top Empowerment Conference on the 31st of July to the 1st of August, and the awards are that evening. So I'm sure you'll be getting an invite if you haven't got one already.
I haven't. I'm jealous. I need one.
Okay, I'll be talking to the team for sure.
Okay, thank you, Ralf. Thank you very
Bye,
much.
Mathews.